So I went out the back door into space, and I'm passing through it, and I very quickly come to a planet, a circular sphere in this space that's very large, like Earth. And I just keep right on going through the atmosphere, and I went into a room, and I was over the shoulder of me, but not in this body. It's over the shoulder of me existing in a parallel concurrent life, maybe, because there's no time on the other side. So I come over her shoulder, and she turns and looks at me right in the eyes. And it was no doubt that was me. I was saying hello to myself, living some other life. And is blue, kind of like a pool or the Caribbean. As you see the shadows of the turn of the face, it was more cobalt blue, very beautiful. Eyes the same color, very bright, brilliant, full blue. She is bald, with a higher head, but otherwise very human. But the most beautiful thing was that connection when our eyes met and knowing, hey, that's me jetting around on a different planet in a different body. And it's so quick, Lori. It's like I go in, and then it's like, hey, and then I'm moving out again.
My
Right there.
guest today is Angela Rose Harris, who decided to have a diagnostic test that actually the results are supposed to make her pass out. But something very unusual happened during this test. Instead of just passing out, she completely popped out of her body and had a near-death experience where she was able to go into the heavenly realm and meet relatives, which was an amazing experience for her and changed everything about her life. So much so that she now works closely with IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, to help people share their story about their near-death experiences with the world. So, Angela, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, Lori. Thank you for holding this podcast and sharing these stories with everyone. It's important work.
It is important work. And I'm glad to hear you say that because I think these stories are so much more than just the near-death experience. I think the near-death experience is the icing on the cake. I think the wisdom that you accumulate in the years after and all of the things that you understand in a different perspective are the real information that I want to try and get out to the world.
Yes, wonderful.
So I mentioned in the intro that you went in to have this voluntary procedure with neurological issues that you'd been experiencing. So will you explain kind of what led up to you deciding to have this test before you had this near-death experience?
Sure. Yeah. I was a teacher of elementary school children, fourth grade in the US, so 8, 9 years old. And teaching requires you to stand up all day, which will be important when you hear the kicker with this one. So I was standing up all day. I walked around the classroom, but basically only sat down, in the morning to sit at the table for, like tutoring kids with reading and math. And then for a very short lunch because teaching, you really don't even get a full lunch period. But I would get to the middle of the afternoon and I was really tired, having trouble thinking. And one day I just decided I was going to go to the school nurse and just let her know I wasn't feeling well, see if she had any advice. And she took one look at me and she said, "Oh my goodness, can I please take your blood pressure?" My blood pressure was usually like 116 over 85 or something like that, pretty low. And it was 158. So she was alarmed and wanted me to not go back to my classroom and go to the doctor. Only another thing about teachers, we don't leave our kids. So I went back to the classroom, and She said, if you don't feel well in the classroom, if it doesn't get better, then you need to call me. It actually got worse. So I did call her on the phone from the classroom. She came down and there was an empty room across the hall. So we went into that empty room and someone watched my kids for me while I was in there. And my blood pressure had gone up to 180. So she was not going to let me just drive myself anywhere or even have another teacher drive me to my doctor's office. She put me in an ambulance and I went to the hospital. Well, I went through all kinds of tests and they found nothing. And I really was feeling like maybe it was a neurological problem because I had a lot of tremors. And so I went to a neurologist, and the neurologist sent me to a movement disorder specialist. The movement disorder specialist did tons of tests, tons, and they were getting no answers. They had a guess at what it was, but I had to wait to get on this special testing device called a tilt table. On the tilt table, you get on it, it's laying down, and they strap your head, your hands, and your feet down so that you can't move. The point of that is to keep you from using any version of a second heart. So you think about when you are exercising and you do something like a squat and you squat down and then you stand back up, you're essentially forcing your body to pump your blood so it gets back up where it needs to be. Walking around keeps your body circulating. So movement prohibits them really from determining whether your brain is talking to your body and vice versa. Is there some sort of gap there? So my husband was in there and he was able to see the screens. I was hooked up to every kind of thing that would tell you if someone was alive or not. And it went down like a ski slope, nice and smooth. And at 18 minutes, I went into seizures to revive myself and I popped out of my body. And when I came out of my body, was facing myself. So one might say I flipped around. It's human nature to want to say I turned around and I was facing myself. But really, what it was is that it was 360-degree vision, which is very common for people who have experiences like that. What you see is what you put your focus on. So I put my focus on myself and I meant nothing to me. That's the really interesting thing to me is that I had no feelings about my body, what I was seeing. I didn't really even recognize that that was me. It was just a person. And I could see and hear everything going on in the room, including what people were thinking. I thought about how we had gotten to the hospital. I kind of remembered, oh, this is the hospital room. I remember coming here. And my mind went kind of out of the room, my soul, the direction of my thoughts, however you want to say it, went out of the room and over the building, and I could see the park across the street. I could see people crossing the street. And then I came back into the room. And it's all kind of happening at once in this space after I've exited my body. And kind of all at the same time, the nurse who was seated in front of me in a chair to watch if I was trying to move my legs around to see if I was trying to revive myself that way, stood up and she passed through my soul, where my soul was kind of parked for the moment. And I felt her pass, kind of like people talk about ghosts, like a soft feeling passing through my body, a tingle. And she went this way so I'm facing my body. She went to the right to go around the table to press this emergency button to lower the table so that I could revive myself, or she could forcefully revive me. And as she went through me, I could kind of see her face, but then it was like I saw the back of her face as she went around. And I could see the doctor, I could see my husband on the left side. And all at the same time as I'm hearing their thoughts, listening to them talk, thinking about where I came from across the street, the nurse passing through me. all of it happening, I'm kind of moving backwards into the left-hand corner of the room. So I turned around, kind of moving backwards and up to the corner of the room. And I can feel it. Like I have a sensation of movement as I'm doing this, even though I don't have a body because I left it on the tilt table. So I'm moving to the back corner of the room and I'm feeling this thing occurring kind of behind me. And it's the tunnel that everybody talks of, well, not everyone. Some people have experienced the kind of black tunnel. I call it the velvety void. And I'm moving backwards up into this space. And this whole time, there's this sense of love and comfort and just an expounding joy. That's the only way I can describe it. And one thing I didn't mention is when I popped out of my body, it was blissful simply because I left my body. My body had been in a lot of pain, not typical pain, it's like a neuropathy. And so when I popped out of my body, there was just this release of that, the weight, the heat, the wetness of it, the that alone was blissful and wonderful. And then there's all this, feeling of being back in this space of love where we're from. And it's just getting more and more and more the whole time. So the whole time I'm talking to you and I'm there, it's getting more and more and more and more the whole time, which is unbelievable because when I popped out of my body, it was so amazing. So I'm just curious then if we stay there, we don't come back, how crazy does that get? That's got to be pretty awesome. So I'm heading towards this velvety void and I get back there and it's the upper left corner of the room and I can see the room below me. I can see the nurse over there doing her job. I can see the doctor holding my husband back with his arm out saying, no, we need to do work. I can see down the hallway that we came in. I could see the waiting room. Again, I can see the park across the street. I can see it all. If I think about it, I can see it. And I slip into the velvety void and I'm kind of turning as I'm doing it. And my attention, my soul, and I just see this, I call it the velvety void, this soft space, soothing, comforting, not scary. I think sometimes when people hear this, dark tunnel that you disappear into, it can sound frightening, but it wasn't for me. For some people it is. For me it wasn't. It was blissful and wonderful and it felt like a home. And as I turned into it, I could see not like walls, but like a shimmering kind of like when you look at velvet at night, not glittery stuff. It's much softer than that. So a reflection of light there. And I'm in it and I've gone a little ways and my attention has turned fully to go towards a light in this velvety void. And that's when I realize I'm actually next to someone. And the someone is someone I have been with my whole life. It was seamless. It wasn't like me turning around and saying, "Whoa, here's this person. Where the heck did you come from?" No, it was like, "Oh, you're here." And she's just moving along with me. We're not walking, we're just kind of thing. And there is a sensation of movement. I can see, that velvety kind of space moving around us, and we're moving towards a light. And our conversation is seamless. It's the same conversation I was having with what I thought was myself when I was back in the room, when I was going to the room, when I was a little kid on the playground, when I was a teenager, when I was hard on myself. That was her. That wasn't me. So she's been with me the whole time. She's, what a lot of people call a life guide, a spirit guide, a soul guide. And that conversation is just, I really want to express to people that you are truly never alone. These other souls are with you, helping you through everything. So when you're having a conversation with yourself, when you are feeling alone, when you are crying, when your heart is breaking, they're with you. They are by your side. So it can feel very alone. I think that's part of the human experience, that we're supposed to have this separation, which I can talk about more later. And as a part of the human experience, we forget that they're there, but they are. And so um, there she is. And I'm realizing this, I'm remembering her, and we're moving towards this white space together. And we move into it, and it doesn't take very long. And I always say it was like going into a subway tunnel, just so people can feel that sense of what it was like. So it was very soft, right? It wasn't like opening a door and there's, white light. The white light was spilling out, but not, it's one of those ineffable things because it's something that doesn't exist here. But it was like going into a subway tunnel. So if you're sitting on a subway and you're in that dark tunnel, and the light kind of starts to very softly be on the walls beside you, and then you enter the tunnel, it kind of comes over you, that sense of feeling. That's what it was like. And I went into this room or space that was very white and soft and very much like the velvety void. So there was white light all around me, but there was nothing to indicate a wall or a ceiling or a floor. It was more like being inside this really soft, cottony space. And my family was there, my friends were there. Uh, When you are on the other side, for me, when I was experiencing this, the people who I knew most in this life were at the front of this grouping of people. But the grouping of people went very, very far back. And I knew who they were when I kind of put my focus of attention on them. And they were from this life, they were from past lives. So souls that we interact with in so many different ways. And they were all there to greet me. And it was lovely. It was so just full of acceptance and warmth and grace. I think that's a good word for it. Their grace, every time I would touch someone or hug someone, I would completely switch spaces. So I would hug them, and I would, as I'm approaching them, thinking about them and my memories, and they looked like they did when I knew them in this life. And I would hug them, and then I would become them. And I would remember all of our interactions together, mostly the ones that were the most powerful. Like if you think about a life review and you really stop and focus on some things, it was like that. So I did that with, my mother-in-law who had transitioned, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, friends that had passed. And I just kind of the one person recently said it was a life review. That was a version of a life review, and it really was. It was a life review directly with them. And I can't wait to do that with my kids and my husband. I think it's going to be awesome, right? So when you're there, you can go back to those moments in a very rich, real way. It's not quite the same, but it's really close. So let me give you an example. So I remember I've never told anyone this story before, Lori. This is just yours.
This is I'm so thrilled right now.
Yeah, so when I hugged my grandmother, she was a baker, and we would go up there pretty much for every Christmas because my dad had been in the Navy, and we had moved away. And so at Christmas, they would pick me up from school, we'd get in the car and we'd drive middle of Michigan and stay with my grandparents. And she loved to bake. And so she would make just every kind of cookie and pies and cakes. And so when we would walk into the house, she had this bar between the dining area and the kitchen, and it was literally stacked with stuff. It was insane. I don't know how she did it. When I think about it as a mom now, I'm like, good grief, that was amazing. That was a feat. So that was part of it was, we would arrive and hug, and that was just such a special moment for me, the smell, all of it. So when I'm hugging her, I'm in their house. I'm not in the white space hugging my grandmother. I'm in the house. I'm in the dining room. The lights are on. It's night. I'm exhausted. I feel like I just got out of a 12-hour car ride, which I would have. And all the cookies are there. The smell is there. I can hear my grandfather's voice. He's right there beside us. We're all hugging each other. So these memories are incredibly rich and incredibly powerful. And yes, if, some people will ask, well, does that affect the way you live your life? Yeah, it does, because now I know not only is it just important to be kind to people, I mean, if we just go to that, but the experiences like that you create for people are so important. It's something that stays within them literally forever, right? Because I will literally take that past my death date and into these other lives that I live. So anytime you can do something wonderful and supportive for someone, totally do it. Um, so that was fantastic. And then, I'm thinking about, well, wow, this is really incredible. I haven't even realized I'm dead yet, by the way. Not really. I mean, I might have had like a fleeting moment, but it's not really come home to me. So I'm feeling like I can't cross this border. Like I can hug them, but I can't go like past the first few people to the back of the space to talk and hug with other people. And all at the same time, I'm also starting to think about, why am I here? What is going on? What's happening? And that's when I really start to realize, oh, I'm dead. And I think about my family, and there's this portal that opens up in the cottony space, and I can see my kids where they are, and I can see my husband in the hospital room. And as I'm looking at my kids, so this happens every time I think of them, which was frequently while I was there. Um, I'm looking at my kids and they're doing this flickering thing. So I'm going to point to, actually, hold on. I'm going to keep going with this. So the flickering is happening. And as the flickering is happening, I'm seeing each of them where they are on Earth. So they're sitting together on the floor. And my oldest child she's sitting there, but then in the intervening spaces and the speed, it's like if you took a light switch and you just did this with it, on and off, on and off, on and off. And the on is her on the floor. The off is a man standing there, and he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And he has a beard. And at the time, on the other side, I was like, wow, okay, yes, I have confirmation of what I'm seeing here. So that child, without my intervening, so I said nothing to this child, and I'll share some of those things I knew before, has transitioned from female to male. And we had confirmation of that even at that time, because when We were walking outside one day. He said, I want to get a haircut. And I took her at the time, now him, to the salon, and he wanted the pixie cut, like the super short cut. Never wanted a skirt, always wanted the cargo pants. Every time I washed that kid's clothes, there were rocks coming out of the pockets. I mean, we knew, but we never said anything to this child, right? We let this child be. And here we are. So that's a little bit of that, you know, a type of veridical proof that we have there. And then my other daughter, the flickering on the other side was an adult woman with long hair, much like your own, Lori. She wears hers in her natural curl, and she was wearing like a white lab coat, like doctors wear, that kind of thing. And now she wants to go to med school. So yeah, very, very interesting how that turned out. And then as I'm thinking about them, that by the way, that flickering has happened with other people. And then as I'm thinking about that, I'm realizing that I'm home, that this is where I'm from, that this is where we're all from, that Earth was just a temporary thing that I chose to go do. And I'm feeling this kind of rushing. So for anyone who gets that tingling feeling and they feel like, they're talking to their angel, it's like that, but times like all the stars in the sky. It's that information, it's that flow of the light from the other side passing through me. And it's very interesting to me too, thinking back on my experience, how I'm in this white space and there's kind of two doors, if you will. There's what I came through that I described before, which would go back to that velvety void and back to the hospital room. But directly opposite, there's kind of another space. And as I'm standing in this kind of river of tingling knowledge, that I'm realizing I'm home, I'm having all these questions like, or remembrances about, wow, here I am. I've lived these past lives. I'm living concurrent lives. I was already starting to plan future lives according to where we are right now in this timeline. um, I would go to those spaces, go see that happening. So I went out the back door into space. It looked very much like when we look up at night and you have a really good view of the stars. Or if you've watched the movie Star Trek and they're on the ship and they're doing warp speed and the stars are flying by really fast in front of them. That's very much what I saw. Very, very much. And I'm passing through it and I very quickly come to a planet, a circular sphere in this space that's very large like Earth. And I just keep right on going through the atmosphere and I come into it. All happens very quickly and I don't remember a lot about it right now, but I went into a room and I was over the shoulder of me, but not in this body. I was over the shoulder of me existing in a parallel concurrent life, maybe, because there's no time on the other side. So, and I didn't have a body to help me with that. So I come over her shoulder and she turns and looks at me right in the eyes. And it was no doubt that was me. I was saying hello to myself, living some other life. And is blue, kind of like a pool or the Caribbean. And then something maybe to do with the lighting there. It's a different planet. I don't know what that sun is like, what that lighting would be like. But as you see the shadows kind of the turn of the face, it was more cobalt blue, very beautiful. Eyes the same color, very bright, brilliant, cool blue. She is bald, with a higher head, not like a cone head, but more like, just a more prominent, the skull would come up farther than ours does. And but a very soft chin, very soft nose. So most people on Earth have a very prominent bone, that comes up in a very triangle shape. Hers was much softer with just light shadows at the turn of the nose, but otherwise very human. Um, a smaller neck, very small shoulders. Is that a body type maybe? Does everybody there look like that? Don't know. I didn't see any others, so I can't say for sure that this particular version of me that had a much smaller body in proportion to the head, the size of the head. But the most beautiful thing was that connection when our eyes met and knowing, hey, that's me jetting around on a different planet in a different body. And it's so quick, Lori. It's like I go in and then it's like, hey, and then I'm moving out again. And I felt all of it. So there was feeling again. I didn't have a body, but I was still feeling it. And I was moving backwards. And I went back out into this kind of stream of knowledge. And I did the same thing. So I went to another planet and I came in over the shoulder of another me living another life, another body. And this one was much more like a mantis being. So this mantis look very much like an ant with the same kind of head, rounded in the back and then more pointed and cone-like, where the mouth would be very large circular eye that seems to kind of dome out of the head space because I was able to see the light causing those little shapes, reflective shapes on the eye. um, two sets of antenna. So a set of antenna up on the top of the head, and then some adorable little antenna right here between kind of what would be our nose and our eyes, ant-like mouth, and then the same kind of body. So thorax, legs that go the other way, um, an exoskeleton that was kind of a rusty, dark, rusty red, brick red kind of color. And then there were also these other types of things on it that were black and like an armor. That's how I always see it. So if you think about armor and how, especially like the paper Chinese armor, how it's sheets and then they're stacked on top of each other like shingles on a roof. That's what it was like on its back and head. And same thing. Looked each other in the eye, had that moment of, hey, wow, cool. And then I'm moving backwards and I go back through that river of knowledge and back to that white space, which kind of served like home base for me. I was I would go and do, and then I would go back to that home base, and then I would think about something else. So yeah, and every time I would go back, I would think of my family. I would remember them, and the portal would open up, and I would see them there. And then um, from there, I went, into this thing of, okay, so here I am living these other lives on other planets. And the consequence of that is we're all one, right? I mean, a lot of NDEers express this unity consciousness. That's what I experienced there. I experienced unity consciousness. So these beings are not alien. When we say the term alien, we're really reflecting this separation that there's me and then there's them. and aliens are in that them category. They're not us, they're not a part of us, they don't belong here. That's kind of where we've gotten with that word. And that was not the case here. So I have a hard time with the word when expressed towards beings that don't look like us, I think is the best way to say that. So I experienced this unity consciousness, and then my mind was traveling all over the place, but I was thinking about, well, Earth and what's going on with Earth and past, present, future, and time and all of that. And I went backwards again towards the back door. And then I kind of shot out like a side space. And I was able to see Earth in all of its forms. So, you know, start to finish in a way. And I saw us in this time frame. That's kind of what I focused on is this time frame. Going forward from here, some amount of time. And I was able to see that we, from where we are now, go through a lot. There's two wars that come up where we lose a lot of people. Um, I've since run into a couple of people who've seen a similar thing. We can free will our way out of that. It does not mean this is going to happen. We have a choice. So I saw the possibility of these two wars that are based on essentially migration. I mean, it's when I say migration, I'm meaning people living in places where they don't feel safe. And so they move to another place to feel safe and to have a job and to earn money and to eat. But the people who live where they move to now don't have a job because there are only so many jobs. And these people then move into apartments, and then there aren't enough apartments, and the rent goes up, and so on and so forth. And so there's this animosity that builds up because there are just too many people in one space, right? And then these people who move there are different, and things don't go well. We get in a big fight with each other, and it kills a lot of people. And then there's a pause, a break, a time of not what I would call peace, but rest. And then there's a second big war. And we end up in the end just having, a much less sizable population. So that we're living more in these smaller communities. We still have cell phones, we still have cars, we still have electricity, but it's very different. Live a more localized life. So right now I live in the US in a suburb, and when I go to the grocery store, I have access to pretty much anything I want. There's almost anything. If you go to the produce section, there's produce in there from all over the world. It's not like that. It's what grows near you, and we take care of each other. Also, living in the suburbs, it's a beautiful neighborhood. I love it. I know my neighbors. I like my neighbors. But we do have a tendency to get in our car, drive out, go do our thing, and then we drive back and we drive into our garage and we put the door down. And we only see our neighbors if we're out walking or something like that, right? It's not like that anymore. It's much more, we actually would talk to each other, right? Because we're gardening together in our local community garden. We're taking care of each other's kids. If somebody's dad is aging and needs to go to the doctor, I don't have to stay home to do that for my dad. If I have a job, a neighbor would do that for me and help me with that. Much, much, much more communal and much more happy. When I was experiencing that future potential life, everyone was happy. Everyone got along. It didn't matter what your name was, how tall you were, what color your skin was, what size your waistline was. None of that mattered. Everyone accepted everyone. It was harmonious and beautiful. It's not a beautiful path to that. I hope we can get there without all that turmoil that I saw leads us to that path. I really look at life different now. You know, as an American suburbanite, I used to much more be into fences, and now I'm not. I think it's great to live in a space where it's much more social. We actually chose our neighborhood because it's like that. So, what can we say of that? Love your neighbor and actually talk to your neighbor, care for your neighbor. And then I again kind of went back to home base, and um, I started to have this life review where I kind of felt it, it was that 360 vision again. So I'm having my life review and I'm facing the family and friends that are there. They're still there. And Melanie is there, my life guide. And then I have this life review, and the life review is behind me, which is where I would see my kids through the portal, but I can still see it because I don't have a body, right? And again, it's about where you focus your attention. So I'm watching my life review, and I was what everyone would call a nice person. I did good things. I was kind to people, but we all have our moments. And that those were really painful, watching those very simple little things. And I like to share because I think we all get into this moment where I was sitting and I was waiting to turn left, and it was a two-lane road, and it was rush hour and everyone was feeling it. I'm going to say this way for like on purpose. So, when you're in your car and you're like, I've been sitting in this line forever and I want to go. And oh, look, here's a person who needs to turn left and probably should go in front of me. But I've been waiting in this line forever and I don't want to wait any longer. And so you don't let them in and you keep going. I've done it. And I also have had it done to me. And this is the moment, right? Where I'm sitting there waiting. No one's letting me in. No one's letting me in. No one's letting me in. And I've got people lined up behind me who are like, girl, just get it done. So I turned out. There was a space. Somebody was sleeping, whatever. I shoved my car in there. Well, in my life review, I was the guy behind me in the car. So I felt all that. I felt his anger. I felt him carry that anger all the way home to his family. I felt him feel that anger when he was not nice to his dog about it because he was expressing this anger and that's the way he did it. So, could I do something different in that moment? Yeah, I could have. I could have turned right. And I could have gone down the street and I could have used a stoplight to turn around and it probably would have been faster, to be honest. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I think to do that in that moment? Because then I wouldn't have upset anyone, right? I would have been able to save that moment. So, just be watchful when you're doing making those decisions. I always say if it feels funny, that's when you know that your life guide is talking to you and saying, "Don't do that." I was just in a meeting where I had that happen, where I felt this like pressure, and I knew she was telling me, "Hey, hey, 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 listen to me, listen to me, listen to me." And when I did, then there was that release. So if you feel that way sometimes, that's what's going on. So there were other things like that. It's not like I was going around and getting in fights with people. I wasn't stealing stuff. I wasn't, I mean, I was trying to turn left and I was upsetting someone. And that really burned me in that moment. I felt like wow, I was not who I thought I should be. And part of that is because I was looking at me, at Angela, trying to make it on planet Earth, not knowing really, openly about what I was experiencing in that moment, not remembering who I truly was, not remembering where I'm truly from. But I'm watching my actions as this veiled version of myself from my unveiled version of myself, from my angelic self. And that's really hard. So I had a lot of compassion for myself as I was watching this happen. With the turning left example, I'm watching it and I'm feeling this really kind of autonomous thing of compassionate for myself, saying, well, you needed to turn left and you didn't think about turning right. And that's okay. You were doing your best in your human body and you'd had a tough day. But then also I'm thinking, but I wanted to do better. That's what I went there for. Why didn't I do better? It's almost like my human self was still in me a little bit, and my angelic self is always in me. And I started. I want to go back and share something else about my experience that I didn't. So this was in my life review as well. So pull out with me here. I started to think about, wow, I didn't do a very good job. And on Earth, I've been told that you send yourself to hell or purgatory. Maybe that's what I should. And it's like coming out of my head, right? Or lack of head, my soul, whatever. And it's coming out, but at the same time, Melanie and mom, my mother-in-law, step in. Hold on to that thought. I'm going to go back and tell you something else about my life review. So during my life review, I also saw that I had a life plan with my father on earth, of my father of Angela, the body I'm in now. And um, it's hard for a lot of people to hear because it has to do with evil and not being a good person. And I made a plan with him, and we do this with really, if you spend more than like 2 minutes talking to someone, you probably have a soul plan with them. I'm just going to lay that secret on the table. So, yeah, I made this soul plan with him, and he was coming here, this soul. I don't even like saying he, it doesn't feel right because he's not a he's this angelic light being. So, this angelic light being decides that along with my angelic light being, we're going to get into some human bodies and we're going to try out this thing to see how we do with it, right? Kind of like I want to, very different, but here's an example. I want to learn to ski, and skiing is dangerous and I know nothing about it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put on some skis and go to the top of the highest mountain on the scariest ski slope. And I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. So we're going to pop into these bodies and we're going to grow up in these separate times. And he's going to become my father. And on his way to becoming my father, he goes through some serious abuse situations, which warp his human mind to make him believe that that's the way you're supposed to treat people. And I'm going to pop into a body and I'm going to become his daughter and I'm going to become the subject of this abuse. Potentially. Okay, there's the key right there. Potentially. He has the choice to not do that, just like the people who abused him had the choice to not do that. But they did it, and he did it, and so I was abused. My job was to stop that, to stop the abuse, which I did, to let him know it wasn't okay, which I did, to protect my children from being around an abusive person, which I did. So, do we have the potential to break a cycle? Darn right we do. I did it. Is it easy? No, it's not. And I'm not going to say anything about anyone's path, whether you can or cannot, but I can tell you it is possible. I've done it. A lot of people have done it. I can point to numerous people who've had profound experiences like mine who've done it before and after their experiences. So we do plan our lives. We do write these stories that include horrific circumstances, but you have a choice in the moment to do or not do. There's a quote by Seth from Seth Speaks that's very much in that vein of you choose. So let's say you're in something that feels like it's completely out of your control. It's an earthquake. You're in the earthquake and you choose to be injured in the earthquake, or you don't choose to be injured in the earthquake. And I'm not meaning during the earthquake, I'm actually meaning well before it with your choices, your thoughts, what you think about life and how much you want to be in life. So, you know, it's a long, I guess what I'm trying to express is it's a long term journey that is founded upon your inner sanctum and how much you want to continue your journey as a human and really launch yourself into it, or how much you feel like you just want to go home and you just want to be done and you're not happy with the way things are going, essentially. That's my experience with it. So I have this experience and I bring this back with me. And what did I do with that? Well, I, you know, did I forgive my dad? Yes and no. I mean, do I forgive him? Yeah, because he's a soul who's trying to do his best. And aren't we all? I have compassion for him for that. Am I going to let him be around my teenage daughter? No, no, I have to protect her. So, there's that side of it as well. So let's go back to it's the end of the life review, and I'm having this kind of what would on earth be an existential moment of, wow, I think I should send myself to purgatory because I did not do a good job there. The humanish, still attached to earth side of me is saying, Melanie is stepping in and, her thoughts are coming in with mine. And she's like, but none of us are judging you. And they weren't. No one there judged me but me. I'm feeling her love for me and I'm forgiving myself. And my mother in law is stepping up behind me and she says, my mother in law, hang on to that one. She says, my mother in law, she can't stay. She has to take care of the kids. And I wake up on the tilt table. I think that's hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Angela,
And
this is such a deep experience. I'm just like, my mind is blown and I have so many questions for you. Wow. You know where I think I want to start? It's a comment that you made. It's something I've been saying for a really, really long time. And that is that there is no one of any significance in your life who you have not known before.
yes,
I love it that you said there's no one that you have a conversation with for longer than 2 minutes that you don't have some kind of a connection. So let's start at this place because this is a topic that comes up in these comments over and over again. And it's connected, interconnected in a couple things. Number one, it's connected as a soul contract, meaning the contract that you saw, that you created of a blueprint of what I'm going to call it a blueprint of what you wanted to experience here. But then you also married that with your understanding that it was interconnected with other souls that were contracting with you saying, I'm going to put on this body of Angela, you're going to put on this body of my dad, and potentially we're going to experience these things because this is the comment I see over and over again. I'm watching this video, I'm loving it until they said you pick your parents. And now I can't watch this video anymore because I can't believe that anybody would choose something to be abused, and children don't choose this and they should be protected. And I get that. I agree with all of those things. However, from a spiritual perspective, you and I both understand what this is and what we're doing. And if we're light beings of love, not experience love, made of love, then we are in a place where we can't be harmed, and we choose to come here to experience that which we are not, or maybe try to see almost like a game. And it is a game from a spirit perspective. It doesn't feel like a game here. It feels pretty serious a lot of the times. But from that perspective, this is a game where I'm going to see, can I overcome this? Much the way that I would go in an escape room and try and see, can I figure out how to get out of this situation?
Yeah.
So I would love for you to elaborate a little bit more about how you went from Angela, the human person in my comments who were saying no one would pick this, to understanding that we pick it all.
We do. We do pick it all. It's about learning and growing. And I know even that is hard to hear, right? How
Mm-hmm.
could you be in a place where you can see everything? You can see the past, the present, the future, all of it. It's it is hard to understand from the human side. And I understand it now because I went home and I came back with memories of it. We are here. I love the way you said it's like going into an escape room and you're trying to find your way out. Another way to look at it is if you're living a really great life, it's kind of like a vacation. So I recommend listening to Christian Sundberg, which I know you have his story on your channel.
Yes, I can link it up here. I've
Yeah,
done 2 interviews actually with him. And why
yeah.
don't you explain? Because we both know him, but you went on this way. So explain why
Yeah.
and who he is to you.
So Christian Sundberg is a friend to me. I've met him many times. I really appreciate what he brings to the table in spirituality. He did not have an NDE. He remembers his journey here, I think is the best way to say it. So, a term from the industry would be pre-birth memories. He was on the other side in his light being body. He saw another, like, you're at the coffee shop. You're hanging out at the light being coffee shop. Another light being walks by. You're like, wow, look at that dude. You know, that dude is like totally ripped, but with spirituality instead of muscles because you don't have a body. And
Great. I love this so much.
you walk up and you're like, how did you get so ripped with your light being body? Man, I want that. And this light being, I'm not going to spoil it by sharing his story. You need to go watch it on Lori's channel. He shares his, how he got so ripped in his light being body. And then Christian wants to do that. So Christian goes on this journey to become this being on earth. It does not go well the first time. He
He
has to
busts
try
himself the
again.
first try out of the gate, the first
Yeah,
10 minutes
because
of his life.
yes, yes. I mean, there's just so much to all of this that, it's when I think about people doing bad things and why would you do bad things? It's so broad and deep. I'm just going to use an example here. Let's think of someone who is, the epitome of evil. So we could say Hitler. That's who
That's
everyone
who
always.
everybody brings up, always.
There
Yes.
are a lot. Okay, so pick your demon, whoever you want to put into this story. Why is that person here? Well, that person has a job to do. I saw that with my dad. My dad had a job to be or not be abused, to be or not to be an abuser. So, how does that fall into the importance of the growth of people on Earth or the learning of people on Earth? Beyond that, all of us, because we all take this information home and it becomes a collective understanding. So, here's this light being who comes and is abused. In the abusing, being abused, there are a whole other set of people in there, right? So there's the person doing the abusing, potentially plural abusers. And then let's expand out from that. There are other people who are doing that as well, who came here to do essentially the same thing as the light being that served as my dad was doing, which is trying to overcome this, right? So you're on the other side and you're a light being and you're watching humanity human and you're thinking, what are they doing down there? Why is it so hard? And you feel that, you get that information when they come home. But as I was saying, it's like you want to get on the ski slope yourself. So your individual portion of the one giant soul that is God, Allah, whatever name you use for it, source, you actually want to get on the ski slope yourself and ski. You actually want to get in the body and try it and do the right thing. Do the loving thing. Be who you really are. And the catch with that is that when we jet into our bodies, we have this veil that happens, this forgetting of who we are. It happens when people have NDEs too. So when we come back, we don't remember everything and it kind of becomes unveiled. And that's what we want to do as human beings. We want to be rather than human. So we want to let that veil slip away. We want to have the forgetting disappear so that we can let that light shine through. And when we come here, we all believe we are going to win this race. We are going to be the best skier on that downhill ski they've ever seen. I'm going to be viral on YouTube for my skiing. First time skiing down this hill. But we don't really, that that's not really how it happens, We all fall down, we all skin our knees, we all mess up. It's part of the human being.
Yes. Well, okay, you mentioned this, and this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you, and you segued right into it. And you talked about the collective, the humanness, and we talked about source, God, universe as one giant soul. I love that description because it's very visual, and how we're a drop of that having this consciousness. So, do you think Earth has its own collective consciousness, and then those other beings on those other planets had their own collective consciousness, and they all kind of like stack up and feed back into the big massive whole that nothing is outside of?
Yes, I definitely saw that and felt that when I was having my NDE. I always point to Matthias Stefano on the guide
Ah,
has the initiation series.
yes.
And wow, he does a beautiful job explaining it. My explanation is a Rubik's Cube. So it's
Okay.
another Seth Speaks thing here is that, and a lot of experiencers talk about this. Maria Lupita Garul talks about it, how when we're sleeping, it's astral travel, I think, is a part of this. So as we're sleeping, our soul connects with the other side, like tuning into a radio channel, which you used to be able to do. Now it's a little bit different, but like taking a little dial and you're tuning it, right? And you tune it to your frequency and you go back home and you process everything that you did that day. You think about it, you plan with the other light beings that are there, how you can do better tomorrow. It's okay that you didn't do so good today. Everything's going to be wonderful. We love you. Hug, hug, kiss, kiss. You jet back into your body. You live another day. And it's also a feeding of that information because you're going home and you're telling them all this by essentially it's an upload to that supreme being, which always reminds me of the hive mind from the Star Trek series, which creeps me out. It's not like that. It's all love and happiness, and there's good there, right? So some people want to point to an evil overlord vibe with that. No, that's not what's there. It's that you're uploading your information and also they're kind of you're downloading their information and bringing it back with you. And then you're kind of like a, a Rubik's Cube piece. So if you think about a Rubik's Cube and you want to cheat, right? So you pull pieces off to put them back the way they're supposed to be. I'm a Rubik's Cube piece. The blue person that I saw on the other planet is another Rubik's Cube piece. The mantis being that is me is another Rubik's Cube piece. And when you put all those pieces onto the Rubik's Cube, they are my soul, the one big soul that is me. So all of them are pieces of like a soul family, but a little bit different. Soul family has a different meaning. That we're all bringing our information back into the same bucket, if you will. And then other people, so you, Lori, have your own Rubik's Cube that is not my Rubik's Cube. It's a separate Rubik's Cube. And you put your information in. And then our Rubik's Cubes are actually one piece in a giant Rubik's Cube. So everybody's little Rubik's Cube family of souls is a part of that one bigger piece. A softer way to look at it is the more common. You're like a drop of water in the ocean, really more like a cell. So if you think about a cell in a drop of water, and then my whole grouping of soul is the drop of water, right? And you can't have the ocean without all these drops of water. And the water needs to exist within the ocean. We all go together. We are all one, ebbing and flowing and feeding each other and learning and growing and changing, all as one unit, which is why you're never alone. Never, ever, ever alone.
Which is such a powerful message. And the other part I want to add the caveat to is if we are all the drop of the ocean, and ocean is God, when people are talking about God, I think the hardest part for me when I'm listening to that is people will give all their power away to that because they're not understanding that they are that. They can't take that out of themselves. So once you have this knowledge, praying is a little different
Mm. Oh, yeah.
because who am I praying to? Because it's all me, it's all you. There is no separation.
Right.
Casting out is impossible. It'd be like trying to cut my arm off and send it over there because I didn't like what my arm did. You can't do that because there is no off or casting out. It's all the same thing. So I'd
Right.
love for you to speak to that a little bit because again, we are like, this is not spirituality 101. We're in the senior level course now, right now. We're like 401. We've kind of leveled up to this. And I'm sorry for those of you, I might be losing people here, but we're going super deep because I don't get to have this conversation all the time. You had a super, super deep conversation. I know you and I have very similar experiences. We get what we're talking about in that way that you experienced it. So please elaborate on that a little bit because I think these are shedding lights. We're here to wake you guys up. We're here to confirm things you already know.
Yes. Yeah, we are. That was my experience. It's unity, as I was saying about seeing myself in these other bodies and how that was me. So when I look at that other self and I connected with it, I saw me and a part of my soul. But really, and this goes back to that whole initiation series I mentioned. We are all from one thing. So, the way he describes it, and this is the way I see it and feel it as well, is that we are just, kind of we are the eye of, the ear of this one entity that is the start of everything. It is home for all of us. It's where we come from. I think that can help some people. And that is love. So when you feel love, that's why it feels so good, is because you're feeling your true self in there. You're feeling your home. And when you start to see this, if you close your eyes right now and you just imagine that you're holding, um, it's hard to think of something that you're holding a snowball in your hands and it's not melting, it's just there. And you can see every beautiful individual snowflake on this snowball that you have in your hands. And now you let go of the snowball and you let it just blow into all these individual snowflakes, and
I just got goosebumps all over my whole body. Wow.
they're all floating in front of you. That's like souls. So they're all going out and expanding, but you can still gather them together and put them back into the
Make it
snowball,
beautiful again.
which would
Oh
be,
my gosh, I love this analogy. This is
thank you.
beautiful on so many levels, not the least of which is that we're all this individual, gorgeous, original snowflake that's never going to be replicated again.
Yes, that's right. That is right. You're out here
Love it.
doing you. And
Yeah.
how great does it feel? Think about being a kid, a teenager, especially, and you're at home and you're a part of your family unit. And, your brother is annoying you by chewing his chips too loud. Your mom's getting on you about cleaning your room, and you just want to go away, right? You want to go do something different. It's not unlike that. I'm not saying I get annoyed by other light beings when I'm on the other side. I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe sometimes one's too bright or something. I don't know. I don't remember that part. Wouldn't that be funny? But my point is, even when you're on the other side and you're home and you're a part of, the whole light being family and you're comfortable and you're feeling love, you still sometimes want to step outside of that and experience something different and actually experience it, not connecting to someone else who can make you feel it, but to do it yourself and to have some autonomy in doing this or that. Do I want chocolate? Do I want vanilla? Do I want to be awful and evil right now? Or am I going to be kind and good? Am I going to connect back into that feeling of love? That, that's that kind of thing that we want to do when we're on the other side that causes us to come here and do this. And we have an infinite number of choices. Earth is just one of
Mm.
them. When you
Mhm.
go back, you'll have so many other things you can choose to do. You can go some really nice, easy life for a while and take a little vacation if you want to. I sometimes look at my dog and wonder if she's on vacation. She lives a pretty pampered life.
Yes, probably so. Okay, I want to go back to these other lives that you experienced because this is such another unique perspective. And I want to ask you a question. I believe that when we have a different life, we also are veiled differently. And I've heard a lot of NDEers say over time that this is one of the most difficult places that souls choose to come and experience because of the way that we're veiled, because we forget completely that connection to ourselves and others. So you have this experience and you go to that planet where you're the blue, beautiful being, and you look into her eyes and she sees you. And then you have the one with the mantis, and the same thing happens. Have any of the other yous in another incarnation, since you've been back in the 10 years that you've been back, because you're a little more awake now than you were before, Have any of them visited you and looked in your eyes where you remember this from your human perspective now?
Yes, in my sleep, the blue person did visit me. I had someone at the end of my bed one night, which might have been the mantis being. It had that same vibe, if you will. So yes, I do think that we visit each other in that astral travel kind of way. Have I seen the blue being or the mantis being in a physical form in front of me, as in their physical body is on planet Earth now? I haven't had that happen, but I have had kind of astral travel moments with them and friends and other people, which is interesting. But I think that you were talking. Well, I'll stop there. I think that's a good
No,
place.
go ahead. Finish that thought. I want to hear what you were going to say.
Yeah, I just it takes me back again. I feel like I'm saying it a lot, but you were talking about maybe some planets having a more heavy veil because the
Yeah.
point of the planet is different,
Mm-hmm.
because you need the whole of the planet, everything on it to be kind of in on the point of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that Matthias de Stefano talks about, is that the planet he was on before was not as veiled. And so they were way more awake than we are here, which made it very hard for him.
Yeah, and I think that I think a lot of people, this is part of why it's so difficult coming back from a near-death experience, because you now understand things on a level you never did before, and they don't exist here. You use the word ineffable, which is one I like to use a lot when I talk about my experiences on the other side, because those experiences are so unhuman that you just don't have the right words to even describe what they are.
Yeah.
So when you describe these, Angela, you use so much detail. This isn't a little bit of detail, it's a lot. When you are sharing these, is it like you are connecting to the memory and remembering? Is it more like you are reliving it again? Is it more like it's just a part of you and you now access it in a different way than your brain accessed things before? We help people understand how this is so clear for you, because this happened 10 years ago. Most people are thinking, I had a dream last night. I had a little inkling of it, and then poof, it's gone, and I can't even connect to that detail, or I can't remember what I did last week. And here you are with this extreme detail for something that happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, sometimes I can't remember my own name.
See? Okay. Love it. Love that part of you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I compare it to when something happens to you and it is life changing. So you're in your body, and here's an example. My daughter was driving, and this car went past us just very fast, and they had a horrific accident, and it happened right in front of us. When I think about that, I remember it. It's a memory, and I feel emotional about it, but over time, it's dissipating. So, right after it happened, every time I would close my eyes, it was happening over and over and over again in my mind. And then after a month, it was less. Now, about a year later, I'm thinking about it, I kind of remember it. So it fades over time. When I think of my experience on the other side, when I think about those astral travel moments, I'm there. It's like being on when I was describing being on the other side and I was hugging people, and I could smell the cookies. I was in the room. I felt the warmth of the lights. I could feel the warmth of my grandfather's body and the smell of him. It's like that. And it has been 10 years. On May 15th, it will be my rebirthary, death anniversary. I don't know what the proper word is for it, but yeah, it's realer than real.
Okay, let's talk about something that I've only very infrequently had people experience that I've encountered and been able to interview. And that is about this river of knowledge. You were in it, and it seemed almost like it was a gateway to some other experiences. What do you understand that to be now?
I really just, I feel that it's the knowledge portion of God. So when I think about the different names for it, Akashic records, the book of life, there are so many different names for it and different ways that people have perceived it when they're on the other side. I perceived it as a feeling. There wasn't actually water flowing, although when I'm back in that space, it's like if you see an image of frequency, and how apt is that? That, I would say it's because it's frequency. It was s- like DNA, like a helix, right? Spinning like this, just very soft light around me, but going in that one direction. Was it flowing like that through the other entities that were there? It wasn't. Why? I don't know. But perhaps it's because they were fully integrated back into that space in their light being self, and they were presenting themselves to me. If you want to get deep, right? Here we're going to go swimming in the deep end. They were presenting themselves to me as my family, and I was perceiving them that way. So that flow, then they were already fully in it. They didn't need it to flow through them, is one of my takes on that. And maybe it's something that I called to myself because I needed it as a type of way of remembering or transport, or I don't know. It gets real complicated when you start thinking deep about especially that part of it. But yes, I mean, it definitely was physically, I think, I want to say a representation, but I think it actually was physically this knowledge that we all tap into, which is God. It is source. It is whatever you choose to call the one all that exists beyond what we are here on earth. But we carry with us because it is within our bodies, it is our true selves. Yes, it's a good way to say that for me.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm so glad that you are sharing the life review portion of it, and even the portion that you didn't call a life review, where you had all those experience emotionally with every single being. So you can go to either one of these with this question. This is the last one I'm going to ask you because we could sit here and talk for a much, much, much longer time. But I want to know, because I believe that the life review is one of the most impactful things that people experience, because when we understand the ripple effect we have on others, it makes us think twice when we're getting ready to make a decision about how we're going to react to something. So you mentioned that you had these experiences where you're hugging these people that were in your life, and you were re-experiencing the memories of your connection together. And then you also had the life review. Was there one experience out of all of those that stood out, that really shocked you when you came back to re-examine and think about it in your Angela body, that either you were completely unaware of, or you didn't understand the importance of, and you were just blown away by something that maybe you hadn't even thought of for a long time, that was like, whoa, I had no idea how much this was influencing me, impacting me, or important in the scheme of my life, and I just didn't understand.
Yeah. Uh, it comes down to this, we are mirrors of each other. So I, it's more, it wasn't like one particular thing, it was my entire life review. I could see that I was becoming angrier and angrier, and that anger was stemming from the illness that was becoming worse and worse. And it was like a snowball going down a hill. One was feeding the other. I didn't feel well. I didn't know what to do with it. I was in the time of life where I had small children at home. My husband was very successful, but as a part of that, he was gone traveling a lot. When I say a lot, like 3 months or 3 weeks out of the month.
Lot.
So I'm working full time. I'm raising two small kids. I'm taking them to dance class and I'm going to the grocery store while they're in dance class because that's the only time I can go to the grocery store. So it was not an easy time of life. My fellow teachers labeled me a single mom. My husband loved me. He took care of me. He's a great father. Don't label him in any way. He was doing what he needed to do to take care of us. But it was hard on me. And I didn't know that I really shouldn't have been doing those things because I had this illness. I would have done it differently. I would do it differently if I knew what I know now. But it was exponential, right? Where I don't feel well. I mean, and then it's kind of like being hangry, right? Where you don't feel well and you start to lash out. And I just wish I knew from the start because I could see that kind of like pulling out in front of that guy. As I would do that, it would reflect onto other people and they would reflect back to me, right? And it just was this building of not good stuff, unhappiness that was there. So that's one thing I definitely brought back with myself to the point now where I say to my husband sometimes, one of those moments, to myself, be kind. And when you're saying that, so try to start saying that when you're in that moment, just be kind. You're not just saying it to the other person, you're not just saying it to the situation. More than anything, you're saying it to yourself. Because by being kind, the other person will be kind, and that reflects back to you, the mirror.
I think that that's amazing advice, and the world would be such a better place if everybody was doing it. And I think I'm going to regret if I don't ask this question because you did bring up things about the world and the future and what you saw. That was 10 years ago. Over time, I hear a lot of things that come up. There are a lot of people, Seth materials. You can look at a lot of channelers that are bringing in information. And this video right now, as we're speaking, is living in April of 2025. And these videos go on for many years. You saw things, but that was 10 years ago. I also know that the collective is awakening. I see it every day. I
Oh, yeah.
feel it around me. I think a lot of us feel it around us. And I know that there are people who have seen things in near-death experiences from 20 years ago that were shown things that were going to happen or potentialities of things that could happen, and they didn't because the collective made a bigger change and switched into a different direction.
Right.
It's been 10 years. What do you think now? Because a lot of people are talking about pivotal years, 2025, 2026. 2027, 2028, 2029, those 5 years, the 5 coming up as being very pivotal years. What is your feeling of what you understand right now as things are happening and unfolding?
We're heading towards what I saw.
We are. So what would you tell people? Okay, this is not about fear. Actually, before this video is released, there will be another video that is released. It's already going to be on the channel about a man who's a futurist. And we have a very deep conversation. And it bothered me for at least 5 days afterwards. I had to have many conversations. And one of the things that happened to me, Angela, as I was speaking about this, saying, I'm not prepared, a Jeep passed me with a license plate an hour and a half from where I lived that said, not now. So I'm getting messages that are saying it's not now, but I'm also feeling I need to be a little bit more prepared than I am because I could probably survive for 2 weeks at best with what I have. I don't even know if I could filter my pool for 2 weeks to be able to drink water if everything shut down or I didn't have the ability to go to a store. What would you tell people that this just went, because Because that's kind of what that elicits a little bit, you know?
But what I saw was very much like we've had in the past. It's not, I mean, war is war. And, it depends on where you are and who you are. But it's long and arduous and not something that just happens right away. It's a slow change. And when I say we're heading in the direction right now that I saw, we are very much heading in that direction. And people are in play that I saw in play in my experience. But also, it's not exactly the way I saw it. Oh, I am so sorry.
Totally.
Um, it's just, I think it's not going to turn out that way. I think we're going to navigate this differently because I see so much beauty and love. And I was waiting for a particular moment and someone stepped in and changed it. So it's really, I will say, and people can put on this what they want, but when the election results came out, that it broke my heart. I cried, but it's not going as badly as I thought it would in my view, in my terminology. When I say badly, right, it's from my perspective. So, I think that what we had during the pandemic with this opening up of more and more podcasts and more talk about spirituality, it's spreading like wildfire. And I think that that has a big play in this. And I think that those, what we see on the US stage right now, other stages, and that, I think those two things are kind of swimming side by side right now. But I'm seeing spirituality kind of breaking out of that race in the forefront. So we'll hope.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that that does give people hope. What I heard the most was you saw something and somebody stepped in and changed it. So we all have the ability to change
Yes, we do.
this. We do. We have the power. I believe that the advice that you gave about thinking, be nice, be nice, be nice. And if even 10% of the world implemented that, I think we would see immediate changes.
We would. There's a caveat to that, though, and it goes back to that evil thing. So there are people out there who are, they have like a diagnosable condition and they are mean to people and they can't help it, right? That's just part of their process, their being, their journey. But there are also people out there who have a very different viewpoint than, so let's say here's this person and this person is, you know, really believes that we should never eat meat ever again, that all animals that are in the meat industry should be released and cared for. But then there's the person on the other side who that's all they have on their plate, right? So very dichotomous viewpoints here. So when you say be nice, be nice, be nice, this person is thinking nice is releasing all the animals and giving freedom to all animals. And this person over here is thinking be nice, be nice, be nice, but their be nice is not that nice. It's the, well, I need to feed my kids lots of meat so they'll grow up strong and tall. So I'm being nice to them by feeding them meat. So, and you can apply that to a lot of different things. It's that perspective thing again. So, perspective plays a big part in the overall sway of humanity and the direction we go.
So you believe that it's influenceable or it's not?
Oh, I think it's entirely influenceable. Yeah, I think the way that humanity goes is chosen by humanity as a whole, of course, but it comes down to individuals and what their perspective is. And perspective is so many things, right? I mean, it's built upon our whole life experience and the experiences of the lives around us. that we interact with on a daily basis. And that's when the swing of the pendulum starts to occur. So it really comes down to, for me, how can we help define be kind, be nice on a broader, more global scale so that it's in alignment with who we truly are, which is, love in a way that benefits literally everyone and everything. So if we go back to the meat example, right, that becomes difficult because we've got those two different viewpoints there. How do we get the meat eating guy to come over to the vegan side of things? Because his whole life, his whole culture has built up this belief that that's what you're supposed to do. It's not easy.
Yeah. Well, Angela, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I really
Yeah.
appreciate how much you've shared. I'm sure that people who are watching will want to connect with you. So how can people do that?
You can email me very easily. I do work for IANS. It goes right to my inbox. It's Angela at iands.org. That's IANDS.org. I also have a website where I will, in June, July, be talking with people. So you can set an appointment there. It's my name, AngelaRoseHarris.com. And I think you can probably put that in the notes as
Yeah,
well.
I'll put those in the comment section in the description, and people can connect with you there.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to answer the deeper questions. And I want to thank you for what you are doing to wake up humanity and the collective consciousness. It is so needed right now.
It is. And thank you, Lori, for doing the same, for offering these podcasts for people and for having a deep conversation and covering all the topics that I saw and experienced during my NDE, some of which are controversial, some of which are scary, but it was my experience and I honor it as much as I honor everyone else's individual experiences. So thank you for showcasing all that.
And of course, this channel would be absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch it. So thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.